Welcome to Dungeon Academics. My name is Thomas and I will be your instructor. This is a response to the news that Project Sigil is effectively winding down. Within the last day, Wizards of the Coast has announced, not really announced, but it's been put out that the majority, about 90% of the staff members working on Project Sigil, their 3D virtual tabletop experience, are being let go, with only a few engineers and coders left to maintain the project and integrate it fully into D&D Beyond. This is not that unexpected, and whilst it is disappointing that the project didn't work, I don't feel personally that this was the direction that I wanted Dungeons and Dragons to go in. So, Wizards of the Coast, what do I think went wrong for you? Well, I think this was not a good idea in the first place. There are plenty of virtual tabletops, and you, I suspect, were trying to make the best possible one for Dungeons and Dragons players, which is on the surface a good thing. If it had worked and worked well, I'm sure it would have been a popular service. The problem that I have is I don't believe that this was made with the purest of intentions. After many people have said that Dungeons and Dragons is under-monetized, a lot of people, myself included, believed that this was an opportunity to add subscription fees, microtransactions and loot boxes into the game. And this is not what we're here for. I like Dungeons and Dragons. It's one of my favorite games. I play it quite a lot, and I don't mind spending money on my hobby. I think this is a really important thing that Wizards of the Coast should realize. People like spending money on their hobby to get nice things, to improve the gameplay experience. But microtransactions, loot boxes, virtual assets, these aren't necessarily the things that we want to spend money on. Remember, at its heart, Dungeons and Dragons is a tabletop roleplay game. That the purest form of the gaming experience, the most desirable form of the gaming experience, is a group of people sat around a table rolling dice with models on a map. This is what most of us consider the essence of Dungeons and Dragons. This is what we see when we watch Stranger Things. This is what we see when we see Critical Role. This is what we want to do ourselves. We use a virtual tabletop when that option is not available. It really took off during the pandemic when people couldn't meet face to face, and it has allowed a great number of new games. I'm playing a couple of different roleplay games now with players spread around the world, and we meet virtually, and that's great. Virtual tabletops are a good thing, but it's not the essence, the core of Dungeons and Dragons. And if you are moving your primary financial model into a virtual tabletop, I think you're forgetting what Dungeons and Dragons is supposed to be about. I understand that Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro are companies. They have responsibility to their employees and to their shareholders. And I don't think it's wrong for companies to make a profit if they are providing goods and services that people want at a fair price. But trying to make your $1 billion of Dungeons and Dragons money through microtransactions and subscriptions on D&D Beyond, I don't think that's what the players want. And I think that your financial growth will not go well if that's what you are aiming for. I am happy to give my money for products and services that I enjoy. So what could you be making that I would be happy to spend my money on? Well, stuff that improves my gaming experience. I've already printed out and made my own spell cards, because trying to get the exact set of spell cards I need is difficult, especially when you're multiclassing. I've also been making action cards. Now, some of these are general use cards and some of them are class specific. If you sold a little pack of action cards that had actions, bonus actions, reactions, abilities, feats, I think most players might find them useful just to have in their hand a physical reminder of the things they can do in their turn and how many times they can do them. Players, I believe, are willing to spend money on playing aids that make their experience better. But Hasbro hasn't been, and Wizards of the Coast hasn't been making the things that I would find useful in a game. You've primarily been focusing on things to sell to the dungeon master, the source books, the campaign books, the various models for monsters and NPCs, but you've not been making things for the players themselves. And given that the players outnumber the DM 4, 5, 6 to 1, maybe this should be a direction that you should go in. Maybe you should be writing your games so that player aids become more useful. Not to force players to buy them. I believe that the accessibility of the game is what makes it great. But if you write a game with player aids in mind, so that there's a product that players would want and can spend their money on, but don't have to, I think most players will choose, yes, this is worth it for me. It improves my gaming experience. I will give you some more money. So that's how you monetize the player base. You give them options to buy things that make their life better. I mean, if I look behind me right now, I have a shelf, multiple shelves full of roleplay game source material. I have another one over there that you can't see because it's hiding behind my laundry rack. I have most of that cupboard up there on the top level full of different board games. Like, I am prepared to spend money on my hobby if you make products that work for me. But making a virtual tabletop and encouraging people to play digitally rather than face-to-face, I think that's the wrong direction. Trying to make your money through microtransactions and dreaded loot boxes, I think that's the wrong direction. I believe I know what happened. You brought in executives from the gaming industry, from the computer gaming industry, and they wanted to monetize Dungeons and Dragons as if it was a computer game. But it's not a computer game. It's a tabletop role-playing game. And because of that, you need to find ways to monetize the tabletop version in a way that's not predatory, but in a way that improves the player experience. So, whilst I'm sad that Project Sigil isn't going forward, it could have had great opportunities for success. I'm not surprised. And ultimately, it's not something that I wanted, because I want to sit around a table with other people, face to face, playing my favorite role-playing games. So, what are you going to do now? I believe that Dungeons and Dragons is, as you said, under-monetized. I believe that with careful thought and planning, that the player base can be given options and products that they would be excited about and they would be happy to add to their collection. But Wizards of the Coast, you need to think about how you want to make this money. The money's out there. You just need to figure out how to bring it in your direction. And as an aspiring games designer, I'd be happy to help you with that. So, Wizards of the Coast, if you need my assistance in writing games that are going to be fun and have this opportunity for player aids baked into it, come and find me. I'm not difficult to find. Reply, send me an email to dungeonacademics@gmail.com. I'm happy to talk with you. And for everyone else, enjoy your next game, whatever it may be.